Alright, so we're back in the server corner. This right here is my primary server. You may or may not at this point know that I picked up a bunch of hard drives secondhand. This is just an example of a few of them. And I got 4 of them sitting here. As well as a cat. He seems to be preoccupied with giving himself a bath. This system houses about 80 gigabytes worth of storage. It's maybe about half full. So I'm not wanting really for any more storage, but I would like to upgrade this at least a little bit because I've got these drives, so I might as well use them. So I'm going to do, maybe the cat has even taken an interest in it, guess not, is I've got these 2 drives, which I'll be putting into a RAID 1 array, as is what it is right now. This will be a hot spare, and this will be a backup drive. That'll free up some 80 gig serial ATA drives for other uses, and it'll also allow me to replace the parallel ATA drive I'm currently using as a backup, and use that parallel ATA drive as the boot drive as well as some extra storage, and get that Screamer 6 gig drive out of the system. So, let's get started. First thing is first, I'm going to shut it down in an orderly fashion. Are you sure you want to shut down the server? Yes. You should get a lot quieter in here when that does finally turn off. Just like that. It's amazing how much noise that thing actually makes. Alright, let's get it out of there. Well, I was prepared to tell you that he was somewhat interested in it now, but it seems as though he's lost interest. Here it is. The big, bad swerver that is NAS 1. Well, he is taking some interest in it. Probably because it's making all this noise. Ta-da! Here it is. So, what I'm going to do is I'll have to take the front panel off in order to get that drive out of there. I'm not going to touch those just yet. The drives I'm going to touch is that one, and that one. Those are the 3 that are on the... Are they on the... Yeah, they should... All 3 should be on the RAID controller there. Yeah, all 3 are on that RAID controller. So, those 3 drives will all be coming out. And what I'm hoping to do is to restore everything with rsync from the backup drive. Because it's December 1st, there should have been an rsync job that was just run relatively recently. Actually, it's not December 1st, it's December 2nd, I'm sorry. But there should have been a recent rsync run, so that should be all backed up, and I haven't really touched the data on these drives anyway in recent times. So we'll do that. I might even take the opportunity to clean out the fans in here, because as you can see, kind of a mess. Of course, when I clean out the fans, the cat is going to go running, because he does not like the idea of vacuum cleaners. Well, he was giving the computer an evil eye a second ago, but now he's giving the outside an evil eye. Let's see what happens when I bring it in here. He does not look very happy. Well, here it comes. And there he goes. He knocked over a drink bottle that had stuff in it, so I'm gonna have to clean that up now. Great. Dust meat vacuum cleaner. That is really stubborn. Wow, that is really stubborn. Alright. So let's see, did that do a... Well, it did a marginal job of cleaning up the heatsink. It's not too bad. I think I'll leave it at that. Should be good enough. So now that that's done, let's take these drives out. Okay, I've been at this long enough to know that I need to take the front off of the case. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do. Somehow. Where's the thing? There it is. So that can come off. I don't know if it'll actually come off or if it's hinged. It's hinged. Alright, so that is not going anywhere. That's good. Probably should have looked at these filters while I was at it, but they look pretty clean. Obviously they were not doing their job, or I've got that fan blowing in the wrong way. One of the two. I don't really know. Don't really care at this point. So, these are supposed to be thumb screws on the front. Okay, pull that off. So that way it's out of the way. I'm trying to do this. Probably not a good idea to just set it on that and assume that it's going to work. But that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so all of them are coming out, so it really doesn't matter which one goes where. So I'm just going to unplug all the cabling at the back of these and assume that you can see what I'm doing. Or get something of an idea at least. Unplug that. This one doesn't have a lock, but that's alright. Unplug that. And then this one, which also does not have a lock. What happened? Oh, that's plugged straight into the system? I've got an extra drive somewhere. Hopefully that isn't going to ruin this. But I'm pretty sure that it won't. You can see, you get something of an idea as to how I've got that set up. I probably should put a little bit of tape over top of that so it can't intake any air. These come out via the front. So I should have two C-gates and a Maxtor. Alright, let's pull that out. So there's one Seagate, 7200.10. Pretty much exactly the same thing as what I'm going to be putting in. We've got a second. It looks like this is another 7200.10, but this was originally a spare drive for an HP. I bought these secondhand. Actually, both of them were. The sticker on the other one was in a different place. I bought them secondhand for like 40 bucks or something like that. Long time ago. They've served me well, but it's time to upgrade. And this one was a freebie out of a scrap pile. 80 gigabyte Maxter Diamond Crash 10. So pull all those out. Don't need to do any other drive pulling right now, but I'm going to get this out of the way so I can work on these drives and get them where they need to go. So I've just done a little bit more investigation on this and realized something. That port that was plugged into the motherboard goes to the back of the machine. You might be able to just barely make it out back there. There's an external facing serial ATA port. Oops. So as it turns out, I've actually got two identical cables plugged into this RAID controller, at least two somewhat identical cables plugged into this RAID controller, so I'm going to fix that. Because I don't like that idea. So, I mean, they're not quite identical. Actually, they might be, you know? Yeah, they are. So I'm gonna correct that oversight. That's what I'll do. Correct that. So I'll take this cable out. This is one of the cables. And I'm also going to use that as an excuse not to plug in one of the drives, so I can set up my RAID array properly with the drives I want to use in the RAID array, and then I can put in the other drive and use that as the hot spare, so that way I don't confuse, because I've got a specific set of drives I want to use for this. Top two drives for the array, and the other drive as the hot spare. Although it should be fairly obvious, because I believe it's a different model. Let's see, what's going to be a hot spare is an ST3-250-823AS. And these other ones are ST3-250-820ASs. So I believe it will tell me. So maybe I won't. Maybe what I'll do instead is I'll grab the other cable and I'll plug it in that way. But before I do any of that, I'm going to change these drives out. So that is what we are going to do right now. The particularly eagle-eyed may have noted something very curious about these trays, and it is that I'm not using this strictly as designed. They're supposed to be little rubber grommets that you slide in that way, and you put screws in those rubber grommets, but in order to use those, you need to have special screws. Guess what I don't have? So I just pulled the rubber grommets out of all of them, and I'm not making use of them. So, is that bad? Maybe, but do I care? No. Actually, what I want to do is I want to do this a little bit differently, so that way I have easier access to the drives, and I can install them a little bit better, because just doing it by hand is going to take forever. Okay, I've removed all of the drives from the trays. Did that off camera, it's not really interesting. Did one of them on camera. I think that's good enough for me. And what I've done is with these drives, I hope that I've got them in an order. Alright, so yeah, this is one of the drives for the RAID array. Now what I've done is I've put two screws in here. Not totally, but I'm going to map it like that. Insert it like that, and then take my screwdriver and put these screws in place. Okay, so now that that's in place, I could then take two more screws and put the other side in place. Alright, so that's now all in place. And we can then, and I'm going to give everybody vertigo doing this, we can go over here back to our machine, and we can put the drive in place. Again, I hope I did this correctly, but of course there's really only one way you can do this. So we'll install one of our new drives. Then I'll do the same for the rest of them. Okay, so all the drives are installed. These two are for the RAID array, and this one is the hot spare. Worth noting is I've got one caddy that appears not to snap into place. Excuse me. So that's definitely good to know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook them up, and that drive is going to get a new cable, just a random one out of my pile of cables, assuming that I can actually see what I'm doing. I might move one of these down. Yes, I'm going to move that down. And so the drive on this port, up at the top, whatever port this is, because I actually can't tell. Alright, so that is for that drive. This is for the floppy, which is kind of in my way, to be honest with you. Well, that drive is popping out. Alright, so we'll plug that in place, and then we'll plug our serial ATA cable in place, hopefully without getting another cable within that fan. Worth noting, as I try to knock the camera over, is that the video card in here, in fact, does not have a fan. I was kind of concerned about that. There is no fan, it is just a heatsink, so I don't have to worry about that. And then now I'm going to cable these up. So this cable is going to this one. Again, I don't think it strictly matters what's going where, but I'm keeping track of it. So, like I said, that way if, I don't know if I actually said it or not, but in the event of a failure, I'll know which drive is the culprit. Because especially in the case of these, okay, is that upside down? No. So why is that not going into place? Let's pull that out. I'll do it opposite. In the event of a failure, I'll know which drive is the culprit, as opposed to having to play guess the drive that has died this time. It's not a game that I like to play. Just makes me even more irritated. Okay, so I'll get that in place somehow. Of course, it's much easier to deal with these than it is to deal with those annoying ribbon cables. So those are done. I'm going to take the cable that I evicted earlier and I'm going to plug that into the motherboard because I will need that later. Which means that all the serial ATA on this board will have been taken up, with the exception of the onboard RAID, because I didn't actually realize that this thing does in fact have onboard RAID for serial ATA, which is a very nice feature. But I'm not going to use it if I don't have to. Like I said, this hardware actually, for those that are just tuning in, came out of another system. Much more pedestrian consumer-grade machine. Which did not have hardware RAID on board, of course. This is a K8V SE Deluxe motherboard with an Athlon, I believe it's an Athlon 64X2 3800 Plus. No, it's not. This is an Athlon 64 3000 Plus. The 3800 Plus is in one of my other servers, which you may or may not be taking a look at in future times. But at this point, I don't have any plans for it. So I'm going to put this cage back in place since I'm not going to need it. I'm not going to need access to those drives at this particular juncture. So we'll try and reinstall this without using too many swear words. Now this one on the top here never does want to go into place. And it looks like it actually did this time. Of course, this is a really cramped quarters to work in. I'm not really sure what they were thinking when they designed this. And I don't believe my front panel LED works. I could probably source another one, but I think it's a motherboard problem. This board was a scrap board. That was obviously pulled out of scrap. Looks like my drive over here is finished testing and it didn't reallocate anything, so that's kind of interesting. Probably going to have to do a little bit more testing on that, see if I can get it to reallocate. But anyway, so I got those installed. I'm going to hook this thing up and we will set up our drives. Okay, display is hooked up. Everything is theoretically ready to go. You can tell that's definitely very loud. It didn't die when I moved it over here. What's the keyboard combination? I think it's like Control A or something. Or Control H. Control H to run BIOS setup utility. I'll just spam Control H. Okay. I have two drives for some reason. And they're both different. So one of my drives is not plugged in correctly. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, that was easy. The connector came off of the RAID card. So, what I'm going to do, you can see we got this one drive here. This is going to be our spare drive, which is only SATA 150. So that's going to slow down the performance of the RAID array if I have to use it. So, add remove spare. No suitable disks. Okay, so we'll set initialize. All data will be lost. Press Y for yes. So it says initialized. Add remove spare. That. Configured as a spare. Create. I want RAID 1 mirroring array. I could use RAID 5 if I put more drives on there, which I was thinking about, but I decided, you know what? I might as well keep these older drives around as extra drives just in case these fail, because they are used drives in unknown working health. So, my eventual plan anyway is to replace it all with 500 gig drives when funds permit. So we'll create a RAID 1 array, array name, maximum length, let's call it something, we'll call it storage. Actually, no, let's call it main storage. We're limited to 15 characters. Select devices. That one and that one. So we got a 249 gigabyte capacity, which is good. Cache policy, not applicable. That's unfortunate, but that's alright. Start creation, create. Okay. Says configured, so everything there should be okay. View RAID array, main storage, mirroring, normal, everything there is alright. Oops. Everything there should be alright. Are you sure you want to quit from BIOS utility? Press Y for yes or no to confirm. Press Y. I hope that it configured it properly. That's a Promise Fast Track IDE BIOS, which this machine also has. And I forgot to plug in the network cable. Oops. So, let me take care of that. For some reason, this motherboard shuts off the IDE hard drives when it posts. I don't know why that is. It's kind of unsettling at first. But I'm going to hook up the network cable, and I'm going to go take this camcorder over to the computer so we can set this up. Alright, we are now logged into the administrative console, and we can see that our storage drive is missing, which is understandable because it's not there anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into disks. We'll go to disk management. And we'll take this. It's already there. Actually, no, it's not. Delete selected disks. So that's our high point, which again, it says it's only 79 gigs, which is wrong. So I'm going to delete selected disks. I'm going to apply the changes. And I'm going to re-add the disks. And hopefully this is going to work as expected. Yes, DA0, 250 gigabytes roughly in size. My enter description for your reference will put in storage drive. Not storage drive, storage drive. Hard to do this with a camera. Transfer mode automatic. Standby time, I usually set it to 300 minutes, but it's a RAID controller, so I set it to always on. Power management. Let's set it to level 127. Maybe I will actually. I'll set that to 300 minutes, sure. Although it might not matter. Maybe I'll just leave it alone, and I'll leave the power management alone. Acoustic level, I'll leave that alone. Smart monitoring, I know it doesn't support that, so I'll just leave it off. Pre-formatted file system, I'm setting that to unformatted because I don't know. So I'm going to add that to the system. It'll ask me again to apply the changes, so we'll do that. So it's now online, unknown, or unformatted, and we'll go to the Format tab. And we'll select this. DA0, unknown, unformatted. We cannot format that because it contains the boot partition, which is fine. And that should be UFS for GPT and soft updates. So I'll select Next. I've checked the drive off that I want to format. Volume label, storage. Use percentage for a counter or N for a counter starting at N. Minimum free space, 8%, leave that alone. I have no idea if it's advanced format, so I'm going to ignore that. Erase MBR. Do not erase the master boot record, useful for some RAID controller cards. Well, I'm going to assume that it's not useful in my case, so I'm going to just go ahead and hit Next. You only live once, and I like to live dangerously. Okay. Format. Everything looks good. I've only got the OneDrive selected. Format. So now, if everything works, we'll get our mess of output, which might take a while because it is a large drive. We get done. Hit OK. And then we go back out. And now it says UFS, which is good. So if I go back to the home page now, oh, it's not set up, is it? Nope, I need to set up a mount point. Oopsie, that's important. Alright. So, error retry. Let's reconfigure that. Sure. Actually, let me leave that alone. We'll hit cancel. And we'll hit on retry. See if it worked. No, it didn't. Okay, so I'm going to have to do something about that. Okay, very simply, I just had to delete the existing one and re-add a new one. So we'll apply our changes. At least I think that's what I had to do. I just haven't applied it yet, so I don't know if this is actually going to work. But it looks like it did. What I believe happened is my UFS ID changed. So because it couldn't find that UFS ID, the mount failed even though the device is actually exactly the same. DA0 partition 1. So we go back to our home page now, we should see storage has no usage. The other thing I did is if we go in here, we go over to NAS1. Hope this isn't going to want a password. We can see NAS1 backup. Oops. Interesting. Probably some permission issue. That was only supposed to be temporary anyway, just in case my rsync didn't work. I have a different idea. I'm going to do this from the console. I'm going to have to pipe that so I can actually read it. So, let me formulate my command here, and I will come back. Alright, here's our command. I went over to the other system and I figured out what the command for my rsync backup was in the first place, and I basically just reversed it. So zoom that out. I did also add the verbosity there, which is not on that existing thing. Let's hope this works. Source destination. There's no overwriting anyway, so it shouldn't theoretically matter, but I'm just going to double check and make sure. There we go. So now we are copying everything over. Hopefully it's going to work. It might not be fast. Okay, this is what the system's doing. We can see quite a fair bit of CPU usage. Well, we could before I zoomed in way too far. Fair amount of memory usage, but it's not hitting the swap just yet. And we are increasing in size on storage, so this is technically working. And then my screen just went blank because apparently my night mode turned on. Let me disable that. I'll come back when this process has concluded. And we're back. So you can see I've exited the shell. Process completed. It did say that there was an error message, but the data that was transferred, or let me rephrase that, the usage on both drives is identical at 24 gigabytes. Is there, maybe a couple hundred megabytes here or there that might not have been transferred? Yeah, probably, but you know what? I really don't care either way. It's only storing install media, or not, it's not so much install media, but installer applications for programs. And if one or two of those is missing, it's not the end of the world, I can get them back. So, it's not really storing anything that's overly mission critical. But I'm going to shut this down again. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to change out that backup drive. I might have to see if I can find a system speaker for this. Maybe it has one and it's just not using it. And it's got a lot quieter in here once again. Also, what I'm going to do while I'm at it, I'm going to reverse this fan so that it's blowing out of the case rather than into it. Alright, so here is step 2. Maybe not. I haven't actually counted the steps. So I don't know. What is this? Okay, so step 1 was to get the machine out. We've done that. Step 2 was to change out the drives. We've done that. Step 3 was to transfer the data from the backup to the drive. So there we go. We've done 3 steps. We're now on to step 4, which is to change the backup drive. Now this could get a little interesting because I have just realized that I might not actually have any more serial ATA plugs with which to use. So maybe I will not actually be doing that. I wonder. I'm surprised this power supply does not have more serial ATA on it, given its age. But it looks like I've just got the one. Well, that's kind of stupid. I've just got the one. Makes you wonder why I've only got one. I might be changing my power supply. Okay, first and foremost, I've changed the fan. Secondly, well, I've changed the power supply. Unfortunately, it's not 80 plus. I think where I can get an 80 plus power supply with the requisite number of serial ATA connectors, but I don't have it with me, so I can't do that right now. The other thing I've done is I've put the new drive into this caddy. Didn't do that on camera because this video is starting to get fairly long, and I'm starting to run out of time as well. Unfortunately, I don't think I've put it in here quite correctly. I think I've used the wrong holes. So, yeah, you can definitely see there. Yeah, I used the wrong holes. Oh well, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. It's in there further. The only negative thing would have been if I'd put it in too far forward. I would have had to redo it. Hopefully this is going to work the way that it's supposed to. It's going to actually fit in there not too badly. This is a Silverstone. Well, that's upside down, but it's a Silverstone 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch bay adapter. If you were wondering, it's metal, all metal. A lot of these have plastic fronts, but this one does not. Here we go, it clicked into place. That's not too bad, I guess. So now I gotta hook it up. So let's see, is it gonna matter which one I use? Probably not really. I'm gonna use this one. Make sure you can actually see what I'm doing. Somewhat. So I'm gonna use this as the power supply connection. Hopefully, it's actually gonna go into place. It's not backwards. Now this power supply is bass-ackwards when it comes down to how it arranges its connections, so no, I'm going to use the other one. I might not get, because I got other projects to get to tonight, so I might not actually get to changing the boot drive, and that's alright. I can just save that for next weekend, maybe use it as a live stream, or use it for live stream material. Making sure I'm not cutting my finger open or anything like that. We'll take our serial ATA cable and we will plug it in. It clicks with very nice reassurance. I hope I've plugged that fan in correctly. Now that all the drives are in place, oh, you might also see here, I did actually tape up the front there with electrical tape, probably a waste of electrical tape, but whatever. So now that that's done, I'm going to do up the front, just like that, and I'm going to get it set back up again. Okay, hooked back up, ready to go. Yep, it's blowing air out the front. As designed. Will be interesting to see if all the drives show up. I hooked them all up, I hope. Suppose we'll find out. Hardware initiate failed. Please check device. The BIOS has not been installed. Press G to continue. Odd. Did I plug something in wrong? I hope not. It's never asked me to do that before. Might have to disable that. If it's going to do that. Let's see. Listen to that drive thrash. So let it start, and I'll go over to the web-based interface and see if the drive exists. Interestingly enough, this time it appears as though it is telling us that our configuration information is different from what is actually present. So we'll delete that disk, ADA1, because it's not there anymore. Any service might become invalid or inaccessible. Whatever. Apply changes. And we'll add. I didn't see it show up in the hardware roster. Yeah, it's not there. I'm going to have to figure out something with that. So I'm going to shut the server back down and check that cable. Okay, so look at this. We're now back into this. Why? I don't know what happened or what's going on, but apparently none of the 4 serial ATA ports on this motherboard work. So, fine. They don't want to work, they don't have to. I'll just do it with this. So that means if I want to add any more drive capacity to this machine, I'm going to have to add another RAID card. I do have another one, so it's not that big of a deal, but just means I might be accelerating the pace at which I look for a replacement machine, because I ain't having it. So, you gotta initialize the one drive, because there's only one. So, initialize, I'm going to create, whoops, what? Escape. No. Not sure what happened there. Create, JBOD, call it backup, whoops. Call it backup storage, that's what it is. Select devices. Let's see. 1.1. Oh, I hope that's correct. You know what? I don't know, that might have been a bad idea. Oh well, you only live once. View devices, everything's configured. Looks good to me. So I will quit out of that BIOS. And the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that connection. There's a connection that seems to have been made a little loose here. Fix that. Turn the machine back on. And hopefully we'll have a DA0 and a DA1. Should really disable that serial ATA RAID BIOS because it doesn't work. The thoughts occurred to me that maybe this thing does not actually have serial ATA ports on it, or they're somewhere else on the board. I don't see any other serial ATA ports, just those. But that doesn't mean it couldn't have more somewhere else. I don't know, this experience is consistent with me for crappy Asus motherboards, pretty much. This was supposed to be a very simple task. So much for that. So we'll see if that boots. Actually, I'll see if I actually have both drives now. Yep, all of those drives started. All the channels are on. So hopefully we'll have a DA0 and a DA1. Shouldn't have to do that. Yep. DA0, DA1. They're both exactly the same size. Well, actually, they're not quite. I think the RAID's a little bit smaller. Okay, I'll let that start, and I'll go back over here and configure it. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. It's there. I might just have to take my word, because it didn't look like it was going to focus. So, this is a backup. Backup storage. 250 gigabytes, transfer mode, everything there is same, there's no smart, unformatted, add, and you'll notice that it is complaining here, configuration information about devices is different from physical devices, because I guess it added a serial number here. Can I go in and reconfigure that? Hit save. Is that a thing? Would it let me do that? We'll apply the changes there and hope that it doesn't invalidate anything else. Nope, everything there looks fine. HDD format. UFS. Yeah, it serial numbered them, and the reason why it serial numbered them is because there's 2 different arrays. So, at least now it knows. So DA1's the one that we need to deal with. Next. Volume label backup. It's not advanced format, I don't believe. Do not erase the master boot record. Well, don't check that. I'm just going to leave it alone. Minimum free space, we'll set that as is. So we click on next. We've selected the drive we want to format. Everything there is good. And we now click on format. And it'll probably fail because my life is a comedy. Don't know why I'm showing you all this. Nope, looks like it has succeeded. So we click on OK. Now we get UFS. Hard drive management. Go back here. Everything there is fine. Go back to our mount points. Yeah, that isn't going to work, so we'll have to dump it. Now, I wonder if I could do this all in one shot. DA1, GPT, partition 1, mount point name backup. Description will give it backup storage. Sure. Mount read only, no. File system check, no. Root wheel. Set it up the way that it was before. This is the way that it was before. No access to anybody other than the group. Group gets read permission, and the owner gets write permission. We'll add duplicate mount point name. So, yeah, no. Backup. Blah. Sure. We'll just call it that. Add. For now. We'll apply the changes. Hopefully it will work. There we go. Then we'll go back into this and change it back the way it's supposed to be. Change it back to backup. There. Save. Oops. Save. Apply changes. Good to go. There we go. Yay. Alright. So, I'm going to go back into the CIFS here, change my share information. I'm going to add a share, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just go back into this. Because this is set up, I think, the way that I want it to be set up. Get out of here. Go back to NAS 1. 250 GB file storage. I don't know really what to call it. I'm not going to call it mount backup. Go back to the parent directory. I want mount storage. There we go. It's not read-only. Everything there should be fine. Hit apply. Apply our changes. And hopefully we'll be able to access it. If we go over here, in theory, if I select this, what happens? Does it understand it? Yes, it does. There we go. Look at that. So everything is there the way it was before. Cool. Now we got lots more storage with which we can play with. Last thing I need to do, I need to go in, where is it? My rsync. My local rsync. Regular backup runs. Make sure that this isn't screwed up. We'll execute now. We'll go back home. So now, theoretically, quite a lot of CPU usage, but it should be transferring, maybe. I guess we'll find out. Should be seeing that number increase. Yeah, it's increasing. Okay. So it's working. And that's going to do it for the video. I don't really have anything else for you. I mean, I would put the system back, but I don't really have a need to do that. I'm going to just leave it here for now. I probably should have used a USB keyboard, so I could have just hot plugged it, but I didn't. Oh well. Doesn't really matter. The keyboard can just sit down while I work on other machines, and then we'll put it back. But you don't need to see all that. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I'll see you next time. Till then.